Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 9, entitled The Dynasty of Anshuman, text number 29. Esha hi brahmano vidvans tapashila gunanvita Ariradhayashur Brahma Mahapurusha Samgitam. There's two more lines, but it's not written. So we'll just decide what's on the board. Eshahi Brahmano Vidvam Tapashila Gunanvita Ariradhayashur Brahma Mahapurusha Samgitam. Eshahi Brahmano Vidvam Tapashila Gunanvita Ariradhayashur Brahma Mahapurusha Samgitam. Which are not on the board are as follows. Sarva bhutatma bhavena bhuteshvantarhitam gunai. So word means, please repeat. Esha, this. He, indeed. Brahmana, a qualified Brahmana. Vidvan, learned in Vedic knowledge. Tapa, austerity. Sheela, good behavior. Guna Anvita, endowed with good qualities. Hari Radha Yishu, desiring to be engaged in worshipping. Brahma, the supreme Brahman. Mahapurusha, the supreme person. Krishna, Samgitam, known as Sarva Bhuta, of all living entities. Atma Bhavena, as the super soul. Bhuteshu, in every living entity. Antarhitam, within the core of the heart. Gunai, by qualities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Here is a learned, highly qualified Brahmana engaged in performing austerity and eagerly desiring to worship the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, who lives within the core of the heart in all living entities. Purport. The wife of the Brahmana did not regard her husband as a superficial Brahmana, who was called a Brahmana merely because he was born of a Brahmana family. Rather, this Brahmana was actually qualified with the Brahmanical symptoms. Yasya yal lakshanam proktam Bhagavatam 7:35. The symptoms of a Brahmana are stated in the Shastra. Shamodamastapa shocham shantir ajavamev cha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Bhagavad Gita 18:42. Not only must a Brahmana be qualified, but he must also engage in actual Brahmanical activities. Simply to be qualified is not enough. One must engage in a Brahmana's duties. The duty of a Brahmana is to know the Param Brahma, Krishna. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Because this Brahmana was actually qualified and was also engaged in Brahmanical activities, Brahma Karma, killing him would be a greatly sinful act. And the Brahmana's wife requested that he not be killed. That's the end of purport. Om Ajnantamirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnu Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadambaya Dadati Swapadantha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the shloka in translation once more. Keshari Brahmano Vidvans Tapashila Gunamita Arigadhaishu Brahma Mahapurusha Samgitam Sarvuttatma Bhavena Bhuteshwantarhitam Gune. Here is a learned, highly qualified Brahmana engaged in performing austerity and eagerly desiring to worship the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, who lives within the core of the heart in all living entities. So here in this chapter, the dynasty of Anshuman, we are hearing about different kings, and today's verse is about one king whose name is King Saudasa. So because of some curse, he had some Rakshasa tendency, and in yesterday's verses we heard about this story. So yesterday's verse is as follows: being influenced by the propensity of a Rakshasa and being very hungry, King Saudasa seized the Brahmana. Then the poor woman, the Brahmana's wife, said to the king, so basically the Brahmana's wife very pitiably is requesting King Saudasa not to kill the Brahmana, her husband. And in that request, as we see today's verse, she is mentioning what is the quality of a real Brahmana. So as we know, in Varnashrama system we have 8 divisions, 4 ashramas and 4 varnas. So Brahmana is the topmost varna. In one sense, all the varnas are equal in the sense they are all part of the social body. So each part is important, but still we can see one part is more important. All the parts are important, but one part is more important. Just like in the body, we have legs, arms, belly, chest, head. So all are important. If there is a pinprick on any part of the body, we feel the pain. But the head is most important. If someone's leg is cut, he can still survive. If one arm is cut, he can still survive. But what if the head is cut? One cannot survive. So that's the situation in the society. Shudras are considered to be the legs, and then Vaishyas are considered to be the belly, Kshatriyas are considered to be the arms, and Brahmanas are considered to be the head. So Prabhupada, in his lectures, he says always that in current day, in Kali Yuga, the head of the society is missing. So this is a headless society. So in previously wars, when they used to fight with the swords and lances, etc., bow and arrows, and if a warrior chops off the head of an enemy, for a few moments the person whose head is chopped off will run here and there with great pain. And it's a very ghastly scene. So this is the situation of current day society. The head has been chopped off, there are no brahmanas, almost no brahmanas, and the society is in chaos. There is war and so many nasty activities going on all around the world. So every day's newspaper in one sense is the same. It's similar news of this country has attacked this other country because they are taking revenge for something. So this is a cycle, vicious cycle of revenge. It never ends. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So there is no head, so the society cannot see. So that's why Prabhupada said this ISKCON society is creating the head of the society, or the whole society in general. So it does not mean that only those members of ISKCON who are actually initiated as Brahmanas have to exhibit these Brahmana qualities. That's not a fact. Of course, they definitely have to, but all the members of ISKCON are actually developing this spiritual knowledge, which is essential. This is Brahma Gyan. And here it's written, the duty of a Brahmana is to know the Param Brahma. Brahma Jana Titi Brahmana. One who knows the knowledge of Brahma or the spirit is a Brahmana. So we are all developing that knowledge. So all the members of ISKCON society are supposed to exhibit those qualities. And then, of course, those who want to engage in deity worship, cooking for the deities, etc., they can take the Brahmana initiation. So we know from the Shastra, there are 6 activities of a Brahmana. Patan, Pathan, Yajan, Yajan, Dan, Pratigra. And then the Bhagavad Gita verse is quoted here, Shamo, Dama, Tapa, Shocham, Shanti, Rajam, Nircha, Jnanam, Vidyanam, Astikam, Bharma, Karma, Svabhajam. So these are the qualities, and then those 6 activities are to be performed. So it's a big responsibility. So Yajan, one who performs fire sacrifices and teaches others how to perform it. Then one who studies the Shastra and teaches others the knowledge of the Shastra. And one who accepts charity and in return he also distributes the possessions that he has. A Brahmana actually gets all the necessities, because Brahmana, there are 3 classes out of those 4 who do not work for money, who do not work for others. So Brahmanas, how do they get their sustenance? They get donation. Because they are teaching Shastra and they are doing yajna, so they get donation. And they get so much donation that it's too much. Of course, it's enough for their family and their individual maintenance, but usually they get more than required. So what they do, they just keep whatever is required. They don't hoard extra money or extra possessions. They just keep what's required. Because more you have to spend more time in maintaining those things. So Brahmanas don't want to waste time. They are the leaders of the society they keep as much as required and then they distribute whatever excess is there. So that's why Dan Pratikra. So they don't work for someone, they are totally dedicated to spiritual knowledge and they teach that. And then we have Kshatriyas, this talking about bygone ages when Vedic culture was existent. Now it's not existent, but the principles, some principles we can follow. So Kshatriyas, how do they get their maintenance? They are administrators, so they would get tax from all the citizens. Not all the citizens, basically the Vaishyas. Vaishyas will give tax. We hear from Krishna book that Nanda Maharaj went to Mathura to give tax to Kamsa. Kamsa was the king there, so he went there and he met Vasudev and there's a nice conversation. And then at the end of that conversation, Vasudev says, better go back to Vrindavan quickly, there may be some calamity. Because Vasudev knew that he had exchanged the child. He had taken Krishna to Gokul and exchanged it with the daughter of Nanda and Yashoda. But Nanda Maharaj did not know that. So Vasudev knew that Kamsa would try to kill Krishna and he would send many demons. So he said, better rush quickly. And when Nanda Maharaj went back, he saw there was a big demoness, Putana, dead there. And he was thinking, oh, this Vasudev is very saintly. He could predict the future. How did he know? So anyway, the point is, Nanda Maharaj had gone to Mathura to pay taxes. So Kshatriyas would get their income by taxes, and it was flat tax rate. Anyone knows how much was the tax rate? And what's the maximum tax rate in Australia? 40%. 45, almost half you have to give in tax. So that's why everyone wants to save their tax. My first job in my field of study in accounting was in a tax accounting firm here nearby. So there were two bosses there, and they had written a very popular book, and the title was How to Save Tax Legally. So the clients would come to that office and basically they would tell, okay, you can make a trust like that and this and that. So all these things are there. Government is exacting high level of tax and people are trying to find loopholes how to save tax. So it's actually a failed system all around the world. But previously, in bygone ages, when Vedic culture was there was flat tax system of 25%. And citizens would happily give because they would have enough. So Nanda Maharaj described again in Krishna book how rich those cowherd men and women were. They were so rich, they had golden jewelry and all the jewels. And they had so much opulence in terms of milk and milk products, real protected cow milk products. There was so much that in one of the, I think it was Krishna's first birthday or something, it's described, they were throwing milk products on each other. Actual real white butter and other milk products. There was so much opulence. So they would not mind to give even 1/4 of their wealth to the king. So king will not work for anyone, Brahmana will not work for anyone, and the Vaishyas will not work for anyone. They would, in Bhagavad Gita there are 3 activities that mentioned which Vaishyas perform. Anyone knows? Yes. Krishi Goraksha Vanijyam. So farming, cow protection and business. And then in Bhagavatam, one more activity is mentioned. It's called banking. There were no banks. So even in 500 years ago, we hear Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami's story that they had kept some excess money with a grocer. So all these merchants would act as the banking system. Today's banking system is very complex. So how the interest rates work, it's very complex, no one can understand how it works. But previously it was very fair and very secure. And these days the security is not there. So anyway, so Vaishyas will not work for anyone. If they are doing farming, they will sell the excess, there was barter system. Even now, actually I was surprised, one devotee 3-4 years back, he told me he's from a village in the state of Rajasthan in India. And he said in his village, most of the things they just do barter. Only 1 or 2 things they buy from someone else. Even now I was surprised, only once I have heard this. That still the barter system is going on. So a person grows fruits, another person grows wheat, like that, and of course there would be too much for the family, they would take whatever is needed and other things can be bartered for other goods within the village. It was such a perfect system, which is almost non-existent now. So the Vaishyas would sell the excess products, and if they have cows, they will sell excess milk products, like that. And if they are doing other sort of business, so the Vaishyas will also not work for anyone. So 3 classes are not serving anyone. Only the Shudras were supposed to serve the other 3 classes. And they would also not be exploited, they would be provided with all the necessities, juice and food and clothing and house, everything. And they will be very happy to serve other 3 classes, because they will think better we serve, we'll get more blessings, more items. So the point was, money was not given to the Shudras because they don't know how to spend it. So all the necessities were provided as much as required, and they were very happy. So the whole society, the social structure was working in harmony, and everyone was happy and cooperating with each other. But today we don't have that system. Especially we don't have the head of the society, as we hear from Prabhupada's lecture, that mostly it's Shudras, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, mostly everyone is Shudra. And there are some Vaishyas, some businessmen, capitalists. The other day I think we were discussing with Rasikendra too, that there is so capitalism is the philosophy of like some Vaishya philosophy, and then communism, mostly Shudra concept. So that's the current day structure of the society. And each class is trying to exploit the other class. It's based on exploitation, because the greed has increased to next level. So no one is satisfied. So this satisfaction is not there, and greed has increased, so no one is happy. There is that famous saying in English, we were discussing with some devotees a couple of days back, there is enough in this world for everyone's need, but there is not enough in all 3 worlds for a person's greed. And the same concept Vamandev actually exhibits. He went to Bali Maharaj, and he was exhibiting his pastime as a dwarf Brahmana. So he went to Bali Maharaj and asked that I want something. So Bali Maharaj said, ask me whatever you want. So at that point, Bali Maharaj had taken over the whole heavenly kingdom. So he was ruling the whole universe. So he could give anything to this Brahmana in charity. So Vamandev said, I just want 3 paces of land. So he was surprised that 3 paces of land of a normal man is very less length of land, and that to a dwarf person, his footsteps will be, his one step would be very short. So he said, you are not very intelligent. You ask me, I can give you a whole island, in the sense he can give a whole planet. He could have given the rule of a whole planet to Vamandev. He said, I can give you so much that you would not have to ask anything in future to anyone. But you are just asking for 3 steps of land. So Vamandev says a very important thing, which is, if we understand that, we will be very happy. He said that if someone is not happy with what he actually needs, then he will never be happy, even if he gets all 3 words. So that's the same concept. There is enough in this world for everyone needs. There is not enough for even one person's greed in this whole world. So this is their greed increases more and more. So that's why in today's society we see there's so much war and dissatisfaction. People's material life on gross level or subtle level is totally destroyed. Even the normal material life is not there. It's gone even lower than the animal life. Even animals have some, they have a lot of restriction based because they are bound very tightly by the laws of nature. But human beings are acting in many ways even lower than animals in many cases. So that's the situation of this world. So that's why most important is to create the head of the society, the Brahmanas. And here the 7th canto verse is stated, Narad Muni says here, Yasya yal lakshanam proktam pumso varnavi vyanjakam. That one is called a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra based on the lakshana or the qualities, action and qualities. Chatur varnyam maya shishtam guna karma vibhavasham. So based on your qualities that you exhibit and based on your activities, that is what it decides whether you are a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. It does not depend on your birth, or for example, we can say within our society, if someone gets Brahman Diksha, that's like initiation, means that's the beginning. Now we have to realize there's a long way to go. It's not the end, it's the beginning, as we hear during first and second initiations, that we may not have this conception, oh now I have got initiated, whether first or second, and now I have reached this level. So that's a material concept. Because we are seeking for upadhis in material world. If we seek for same upadhis here in ISKCON society, then what's the use? So mentality should be, we have got first initiation, we have got second initiation, or for some, third initiation of sannyas will be there. So then there is a very high responsibility for all those initiations. Of course, here in Melbourne we have so many steps, you have to give so many tests to get initiation, but the process never finishes. We will be examined again and again, every day actually. We have to exhibit these qualities. And not only those who are initiated, all the members. And in that way we can actually say that we are members of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. What is our consciousness? What's the consciousness that we have for while doing each activity? So consciousness should be, we should think of Guru and Krishna. We are doing everything for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. I remember when I was initiated here in the courtyard, we had the Yajna ceremony, and my Guru Maharaj gave me the name Bhakti Sar Das. And then one time, one devotee asked me, what's the meaning of, what is the essence of bhakti? What's the meaning? What did your Guru Maharaj say? I said, at the initiation he didn't say what is the essence of bhakti. Because that devotee who asked me this question, he said in the Updeshamrit, Nectar of Instruction, it is said that thinking about Krishna, chanting all the time, like that, that's the Upadesh Saram, that's the essence of all instruction.
So he was asking what your spiritual master said. So that time my spiritual master was nearby, so I asked him that this senior devotee is asking what is the essence of bhakti. And my Guru Maharaj said to please Krishna. So that's the goal for all human beings and especially devotees, to please Krishna. So that should be our consciousness all the time. And whatever we are doing in bhakti, Nityam Bhagavad Sevya, we're hearing, we're chanting daily, that is a practice, it's sadhana. So sadhana means we are trying to practice to remember Krishna all the time. All the time to think about Krishna's pleasure. And that takes practice. And it's not unnatural. That's the natural state of a living entity, to think about pleasure of Krishna, because we are Krishna's parts and parcels. So in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gives so many rules and regulations, that there are 64 angas of bhakti, and then I think the 6th chapter, there's so many offenses listed. So many do's and don'ts are there. But then finally he says, Smartavya satatam vishnor vismartavya majatachit sarve vidhi nisheda shuru etayoreva kinkara. So there are 2 rules. Actually there are only 2 rules in bhakti. All the other rules are servants of those 2 rules. So what are those 2 rules? Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So in one sense, both are the same thing. Always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna. But one is the vidhi and one is the nishedh. One is a do and one is a don't. So what to do? Always remember Krishna. What not to do? Do not forget Krishna. And again, to emphasize this point, Rupa Goswami again states one verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam in 7th canto. Narad Muni actually says that I aspire for that consciousness of Kamsa or Shishupal. It is very strange. And Narad Muni is saying that he is aspiring for the consciousness that Shishupal or Kamsa has. The point there is, he is saying they were so much intensely focusing on Krishna, although in a wrong way. But the point is, they were actually focusing on Krishna, and that's why they got the benefit. When Shishupal was killed, everyone in that Rajsuya ceremony could see that a spark from the body of Shishupal came out and merged into Krishna's body. So he got liberated. Although he was focusing on Krishna with envy, but at least he was focusing on Krishna. So Narad Muni's point is, we should focus on Krishna. We should always think about Krishna. And that is Krishna consciousness. So Rupa Goswami quotes that from the 7th canto. Tasmat kena pipayena mana Krishna niveshe sarve vidhi nishedasur etayoreva kinkara. So for all rules and regulations, this is the point. Somehow or the other, think about Krishna. Tasmat kena, therefore, somehow or other, either in a favorable or in unfavorable way. The unfavorable way is not recommended, but still, if someone does that, it's not recommended, but someone does that, they get the benefit. And what's the proof? Shishupal, Kamsa. Panchanam, it's said, these are in that chapter, first chapter of 7th canto, the 5 categories are described. These 5 categories of people were intensely focusing upon Krishna. So one is Kamsa. He was focusing on Krishna because of, anyone knows? What was the main? Yes. Yes, fear. So he was very afraid. He was thinking, oh, Krishna will kill me. And simultaneously he was thinking, I will kill Krishna. So he had a very, what's that disease called? Schizophrenia? Schizophrenia. Dual personality is thinking, oh, I will kill Krishna, but he was also convinced that Krishna will kill me. So he was fearful. And then Shishupal was intensely focused on Krishna with envy. So these are two categories, not recommended again. And then third category was the Brajvasis or the Mathuravasis, Dwarkavasis. They were focused on Krishna because of their relation, familial affection, fully focused on Krishna. And then, especially the gopis with conjugal love, and then Narada Muni says us devotees, also the general devotees with devotion, they are fully focused. So tasmat kena vipayana mana Krishna niveshet. Somehow or other, just think about Krishna. And all our activities here in International Society for Krishna Consciousness are meant to actually give an impetus for remembrance of Krishna. So why do we put tilak? Because of course it's a Vaishnava symbol, so that we can feel we are Vaishnava, that is the symbol. But actually it's the main purpose is when others see our tilak, they get remembrance of Krishna. That, oh, here is a devotee of Krishna, which means they are remembering Krishna like that. So that's the focus, how to always think about Krishna. And all the activities we have starting from the morning, we sing the Guru Ashtak prayer. In the last verse, we sing Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutopi Dhyayam Suvams Tasya Yashya Stri Sandhyam. So at 3 junctions of the day, we should remember Guru and Krishna. So those who are second initiated, they chant Gayatri at the 3 junctions of the day. And those who are not initiated, they can also do that. Remember, not do Gayatri, but they can remember Guru and Krishna. You can remember Prabhupada and Krishna at 3 junctions. Should we only think about Guru and Krishna at those 3 junctions? That's the beginning. So when we say we have to chant minimum 16 rounds, that's the beginning. It's minimum, not maximum. What's the maximum? Satatam kirtayanto. All the time, 24 hours. So some people will be discouraged, oh no, I chant my 16 rounds with so much difficulty, and now they are saying all the time, it's so difficult. So that's why there is sadhana. That if we do that minimum, one day we will actually be attracted by Krishna's name and his other attributes. Naam, Roop, Guna and Leela is Krishna's holy name, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's qualities and his beautiful form. Will be attracted. Just a general example also, Rupa Goswami gives this example that a young boy is attracted by a young girl and vice versa. So same way, there is a prayer in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that in the same way, please let Krishna, please let my mind be attracted to you. Just like a young boy is attracted to a young girl and a young girl is attracted to a young boy. So let my mind be attracted to you. So if a young boy and a young girl are in close vicinity, there will be attraction naturally. So that's why we should keep ourselves in close vicinity with Krishna's attributes, Krishna's name, form, his qualities and pastimes. And how to do that? That's made easy. In all our situations, whether we are very happy or sad or there is a calamity, we can always chant the holy name in most of the cases. And then we can remember Krishna's form or actually see Krishna's form We can read about Krishna's qualities. Krishna's 64 qualities are mentioned in Nectar of Devotion. We can meditate on them, and even in Srimad Bhagavatam, those qualities are mentioned. And then Krishna's pastimes, mentioned here in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. So this is the process, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially came to exhibit this process. The how to do that in Kali Yuga through Sankirtan movement. Krishna is a person, and chanting his names and serving Krishna is a very personal process. And that's why he totally defeated the Mayavadis. One time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while traveling to Vrindavan from Jagannath Puri, on the way we go through Kashi or Varanasi, and there Varanasi is considered to be the headquarters of the Mayavadis. As it's mentioned, there are two types of Mayavadis there, Kashira Mayavadis and Sarnath Mayavadis, I think. They were voidists, so impersonalists and voidists, they were both there in that area. So Mahaprabhu went past Varanasi and they were not interested in chanting, dancing process. They were only interested in dry speculation, reading Vedanta like that and discussing that. And the Mayavadi sannyasis would address each other as when they meet each other, like when devotees meet each other, we say Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, like that. But these Mayavadi sannyasis, when they would meet each other, they would say Om Namo Narayana. My obeisance is to you who is Narayan. Because that's the Mayavad concept, that once you are liberated, you become Narayan. So there's a fault in that concept. And this is the main problem of the whole world. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini. Prabhupada saw this Mayavad, impersonalist and voidist philosophy entrenched in the Western society or the whole world actually. So, what's the actual core principle? That I want to become the God, the center and controller. So, in that process, they offend the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a person. So, there Prabhupada describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita purport, in the 7th chapter of Adi Lila. 7th chapter of Adi Lila is very important. It is said if you read that chapter, you will never be troubled by the impersonalist tendency. The 7th chapter of Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, is called Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. Panchatattva. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rup Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So if we know how Krishna is present in these 5 forms as Panchatattva, we will never be implicated by Mayavad tendency. So there Prabhupada mentions Mayavadis are considered such big offenders because they don't recognize the supreme form of Krishna. And there Prabhupada writes, basically they are saying Krishna or God has no form, which means he breaks down, he further explains that concept. So if someone doesn't have eyes, he's called blind. If someone has no legs, he can't walk, he's called lame. Someone has no ears, he's called deaf. Someone who can't speak, he's called dumb. So actually Mayavadis are calling Krishna blind, deaf, dumb, lame and helpless. So it's a great offense. So if someone says God does not exist or he is just an energy, it's a great offense. This is the explanation of that. Why is it an offense? If someone calls you, you are dumb or you are blind, and if you are not, you will feel offended. So that's how Krishna feels. So that's why Mayavadis were there. So Mahaprabhu could not actually spread Sankirtan movement there initially. But then he thought, I have brought this love of God here, no one is buying it. Right? Sometimes a businessman has product, if someone is not buying, what does he do? And Prabhu has been a big businessman, and if you have some goods and you want to sell it at a certain price and no one is buying it, what will you do to sell it?
Reduce the price.
Reduce the price. So that's what Mahaprabhu did. He said, no one is buying this love of Godhead, so let me just give it at any price. So he attracted all the Mayavadis in Varanasi by his effulgence. Because the Mayavadis want to merge in the effulgence. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the source of all effulgence. Yesterday we were reading first chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita in Brahmachari Ashram. And the third verse, Gopavalleshwar was explaining that Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the source of Paramatma and he is the source of Brahman effulgence. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited that part and they were actually attracted. So they thought that we are actually trying to become Narayan and here is someone, another sannyasi, because Mahaprabhu was also initiated in the Mayavad sannyas order. His sannyas guru was Keshav Bharati. That was his preaching technique because he saw that these learned students and many other categories of people are not surrendering to Mahaprabhu when he was exhibiting his pastime as a householder, as Nimai Pandit. So some people were criticizing him. So he thought better take sannyas in Mayavad sect so that these people will also respect me. So that was a preaching technique. So these Varanasi Mayavadi sannyasis saw that here is actually Narayan. He was showing his effulgence. They were addressing each other as Narayan, but they could not artificially show that effulgence. But they could recognize that Mahaprabhu is actually exhibiting this effulgence. So then they became very attracted and they actually surrendered and they also became devotees. So this is the process of bhakti. It's so powerful, just hearing chanting process, that even a great impersonalist, atheist, anyone can become devotee from any part of the world. Patra patra na kare vichar. So who is actually qualified, who is not qualified, we should not think like that. Everyone can become a devotee of Krishna if they just take to this process. So by Harinam Sankirtan, book distribution and prasad distribution, especially these three processes, we are trying to attract everyone to Krishna. So more we surrender to these processes, we will get all these Brahmana qualities and we will slowly get to the level where we can always think of Krishna. It will be difficult for Krishna to go out of our consciousness. So Bilvamangal Thakur says that. At one point when he became blind, he plucked out his eyes and he was living in Vrindavan. Then Krishna used to come to him. So one time he caught Krishna by hand and Krishna released his hand and fled. So then he says in one of his prayers, you can run away, you can, from my grip, but try to run away from my consciousness. I won't let you. So that's a devotee. He captures Krishna in his consciousness and not let him leave anytime. So I would like to end there and see if you have any questions or comments on what we discussed. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru. Thank you for your nice class. Guru, you mentioned how the holy name is personal. So my question is, how is the holy name personal? Because everyone is chanting the same Maha Mantra with the 16 words and the 32 syllables. So how is it like personal, as you mentioned?
So as we hear Naam Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Ras Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinatvan Naam Namina. So there is no difference between person Krishna and name Krishna. So Prabhupada explains in Krishna book again, he says, if you want to eat mango, mango is the king of fruits. So if you want to eat mango and you chant mango, 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 mango is not there. And you won't get the taste of mango if you just chant. Because material substance and its name, which is ascribed to it, is different. That's the material limitation. But on the spiritual level, there is no limitation. In the material level, there are three types of limitations. Trividha Sima Samadhi. What are the three types of limitation? Limitation of time, limitation of space, and limitation of thought. So because of these limitations, the name of a person or object is not actually the same thing. Name is something else and the person is something else. And some places Prabhupada also jokes, sometimes if the child is born blind, some people name him, what was it? Kamal Lochan. Lotus-eyed child, although child is born blind. So there is no similarity between the name and actual person. If we see our material names, the name given by, like in my legal name, it means eternal. So basically body is not eternal. So that's why. So that's the difference. The duality is there in this material world. But Abhinatvan Nam, on the spiritual level, there is no difference. So when we chant Krishna, Krishna is dancing on our tongue. We may not realize it, but he is. And slowly as we become purified of lust, anger, greed, etc., we will see Krishna is there actually when we chant his name. So that's there. Any other question?
Krishna, thanks for the question. Coming to the road of goodness helps us to come to bhakti, but it's not required, is it? To actually surrender and take up the process of devotional service. Is that right?
So, mode of goodness is not a requirement in one sense. But when we become pure, that's called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva Sattva. So what's the difference between mode of goodness in this world and actual pure goodness? Only difference is goodness here is mixed with other two modes, always. So if we say, this person is in mode of passion, what actually means is this person is predominantly in mode of passion and effect of other modes is minimal. So when someone is predominantly in mode of goodness, other modes are also there but in some less fraction. So mode of pure goodness has no mixture at all, unalloyed goodness, Vasudeva Sattva. So as we perform our activities of bhakti, Lord Kapila Dev explains how bhakti can be in three modes. So it doesn't matter which predominant mode we are in currently. If we just start this hearing and chanting process, slowly we'll be purified of all these three modes. And we'll come to that pure goodness. And of course, as we get purified, very quickly we'll get purified of lower two modes. And we'll start exhibiting Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna and Shuddha Sattva, they are similar. Only thing is one is pure and one is mixed. But it's not a requirement. We have to even get purified of mode of goodness. It's not a requirement. We have to get rid of that. Because mode of goodness also binds. It's described in, I think, 14th chapter. How are we bound by mode of goodness? By knowledge and happiness. One who is in mode of goodness, he eats in mode of goodness, he becomes very healthy. So then we are bound by that. We want to be in that sort of happy material state, which means we don't want to get Krishna anxiety. In service there is anxiety. That's called Krishna anxiety. But if someone is in mode of goodness, he doesn't want to disturb his peace, so-called peaceful temporary state. So that's a bondage, that's a problem of mode of goodness. But that's the least problem. In other modes, the problems are much bigger. Any other questions or comments? Okay, and there, thank you very much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.